Good. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming along. As Paul has said, my name's Jonathan Clark. I'm Global Head of Business Solutions Claims for SCOR, and I'm also Qualified Loss Adjuster and a Chartered Insurer, as I discovered the other day. And worked for Crawford, Cunningham, Ellison Buckle, Thomas Howe, many of the legendary names of loss adjusting, before joining SCOR 4 years ago to be part of a team to set up a claims handling operation within our corporate risks unit within SCOR, who are fifth largest reinsurer in the world and also an insurer, as I shall try and describe. And what I want to try and just do for you today is give you just a few thoughts about what is it that we look for as we try and develop our claims service, both internally and externally. And perhaps the most disappointing thing to say to you all is that my role is relatively simple within SCOR. All I have to do is work out the numbers and decide if we want to pay the claims. So as you can imagine, by comparison to what you might consider loss adjusters are doing in the field, that's a relatively simple role. But it does require interpreting quite a lot of information that comes my way. And I'll try and just give you a few sort of thoughts around that. And I think I've got about 15 minutes in which to do that. I think the first thing is we operate in a global environment. And I always turn to Leo here just to give me a few ideas. And the theme really that I want to pursue is one of the same but different. And I think one of the things that strikes me is that we all spend a lot of time trying to do different things, but at the heart of what we do, there are many things that we need to be the same. And I'd like to just try and talk to some of that. So as I say, the theme same but different, and I'll try and elucidate that for you. So what is it that really matters to us? Well, it seems to me very interesting that here we are in 2016, and the work product of most adjusters still seems to be the work product that it was when I came into the industry in 1976, so that's about 40 years. And the work product is a long report, very detailed, very fascinating, and I'm not criticising it as a work product, but it's interesting that we haven't changed the fundamental work product in all of that time, because I can tell you within our business, what we do to that work product is radically different to what's supplied to us. So one of the exercises that we've already undertaken with the people that we work with most closely in the adjusting area is to talk a little bit about what we do, to show them what we do and how we interpret the information that we get and how we convey that to our senior management. And what is it that we're trying to understand? And if I were to highlight one important success factor for a seamless claim service, is that we actually do talk to each other a little bit about what you're doing and what we're doing. And oddly, as customers of the adjusting profession, I would say we haven't always done that. We've done a lot of tell, we probably could do a bit more listening, but you probably do need to understand what we're doing and how our businesses work. And just to give you an idea, you may be aware there's a Hurricane Matthew this week. Well, our chief executive last week took about 20 phone calls saying, what's the number? By Monday morning, it was, what's the number? We've been working on that throughout, and we have to try and produce assessments of that. And we've already been talking to our adjusters out in the field, the people that we work with regularly, just to get a sense of what do they feel this is going to be like, because we're going to have to publish a number. And you'll be aware of that. Every major reinsurer and insurer is trying to publish numbers at the moment. And one of the points that I want to make to you, it's my second point, is we're relying on your experience to give us a sense of what's going on, and I'll come back to that. So my first sort of comment is really what we're trying to understand is you can get to see the risk. We know we've underwritten this risk. What is it that's happened to this risk? What is the incident that specifically happened to this risk? Now again, I'm not trying to criticise, but when I first went to Channel Syndicate, which is our Lloyd's operation, I remember coming in very early in the morning. The adjuster sent me a report, and it's 52 pages long, and I've commented on this before. Fascinating report, compelling stuff, 12 pages as to how the typhoon, I think, had developed. Really, really fascinating stuff, and I have to say, it wasn't something that had passed us by. We had a vague idea there'd been a typhoon. That's why we'd asked somebody to go and have a little look. And about 43 pages in, we got the first indication that there was damage to a risk that we were on. And about 7 or 8 pages later on, we got an idea that the adjuster couldn't tell us how much it was going to cost. So we worked out how much it was going to cost then and there. And my CEO just said to me, out of interest, why are we paying this person to tell us stuff that we know anyway? Why can't they tell us what they've seen? And he was really puzzled. And he wasn't being critical, he just was fascinated by why hadn't I explained clearly to the person who was reporting to me what my job was. And my job was to go to our board at 10 o'clock that morning and give them a number for that particular risk loss. So the point I want to make is, what's unique about the incident? What's unique about what's happened to the risk? What is it that we're going to have to try and deal with? And I'll now move that forward, if I may. So in any particular incident, there will be an impact. There will be an impact that's unique to that risk. Even if there's a hurricane going through, it will impact each risk in a unique and individual way. The underwriter will have had their view as to what the risk was about. You're the eyes and ears on the ground, and you'll have a view as to what actually that risk looks like. And what we're trying to do, I think, is try and get a little bit of imagination going as well. Again, early in my career with SCOR, I was talking to an adjuster, and they said, well, we can't get in because we're not allowed in because the government agencies are inspecting. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, that's really strange because I can actually see the whole site on Google. I've actually got it on a satellite image, I can see all the damage, and you're telling me you can't get in and you don't know what's damaged. The conversation went on for about an hour or so, and again, I apologise to anybody who's heard this, but I just said to him, would it be okay if I just bought you a set of binoculars? Because actually, that's all he needed to do. And this picture here comes from a model that was developed using satellite imagery, and this is well before anybody accessed this site. So well before we got in, using some heat maps, using some other modelling, we'd already got an assessment of what the likely impact of a major incident might be. That's working with somebody who is very experienced in the industry, somebody we work with very closely as a marketplace, but they knew that we needed to start working on this particular incident early and to start to get that assessment, because we didn't know when we could get into site. So all I would say is use some imagination. What we're paying for is your experience. So if you go somewhere and you can see there's a major cracker failure, for instance, that's 25 million. We kind of know that. But what else is it going to impact? What are we actually dealing with? And again, something that I would say to all adjusters is convey what your experience tells you. And maybe, as an industry, as customers, we've beaten you up too long about reserving, about estimates. But we want to get a sense of your experience. And again, I quote a particular example because it's sort of scarred in my memory, which is we appointed somebody to look at something, and it was very, very apparent, it's a subsea pipeline, that it was going to be at least 50 million to repair that pipeline. But we didn't get a number for about 18 months because nobody wanted to say, well, it might be 50, it might be 100, it might be 150. But we needed to get a sense of what it was. And we talked to the adjuster afterwards just to say, why was it that you didn't feel comfortable to tell us a number? And they didn't feel comfortable because they thought we would then take that as being a reserve, rather than an assessment of this is going to cost you at least so much. And so again, I think it falls on all of us, if we want to have the sort of service we're looking for, to communicate that. We also need to know who you think should be on the team. We know adjusters need help from time to time. Who should be on the team? What are they going to do? So again, that's something I would say to you is scope of work, and about how do we manage that team, and about how do we collectively agree the team we need to deal with a major loss. And that then just sort of takes me, if I may, to my third point, and I've only got 3 points to make, and that is, what are the key actions? Because most of what we're looking for on major exposures is to get a sense of what decisions do we need to make? How can we mitigate? How can we manage? How can we start to model what the exposures might look like? And just trying to get an idea as we look at a major incident, what are the possibilities? And some imagination. Again, this happens to be the energy industry, and I do speak a lot about the energy industry. But it's about that reconfiguration, recognising that the policy and the programme is about protecting margin and profit. So how can we optimise high margin products? What can we do? How do we work with the end user, the policy holder, to try and develop some ideas? And this was one idea, that's sort of a very simple schematic, trying to give some thoughts that we could all discuss together in a seamless claim service to make a decision with the client, with the risk manager, with the CFO, as to what it is that would help bring this plant back online quickly and effectively and mitigate an exposure for all of us. Inevitably, in all of it, we do need a number. And the habit that's developed in London Markert over recent years is what's called a range. So you get, well, this loss could be anything from here to here. What I would say to all adjusters, and we've challenged a lot in the last 18 months as an organisation as we've taken more prominent roles on losses, is tell us what the assumptions are in your range. Tell us what it is you know, and tell us what it is you don't know. We'll live with that. What I think a lot of people in this room might not realise is that when there's a major incident, somebody like me will be sitting there instantly trying to work out roughly what that could look like. And we've dealt with major incidents where within a very few hours of a loss, we're having to give indications to our board of likely exposures. Now we know, as I always say to our Chief Underwriting Officer, we're going to be wrong. And as he always says, you know, what's it like to be wrong every day? I said, better me than an underwriter. But throughout, what we're trying to say is we have to try and get some form of assessment. There's a wealth of information out there that we can use to model losses at an early stage. We can base what we know on what we currently can assume. And we may have to change that later. And we're not asking that we get it right within an hour or so, but what we're asking is we start thinking about what sort of money's at play here, because that's ultimately where we're going to be heading. And that's ultimately what we're trying to manage. So it's all about what does this tell me? And I say a range has become quite popular. The reason I sort of introduced with the sort of theme of same but different is it seems to me one of the things that sometimes we forget, because we use process as though it's a pejorative word. And I've heard it used, you know, throughout my career in adjusting as though it's a very negative word. I see it as a very positive word, which is have some steps that you go through. Have them agreed with the people you're going to work with and have them understood with the people that you're going to work with. And we use this particular process map in SCORE. It's not a straight line, it's just pieces of work that need to be done. And we do it so that when we're talking with our experts, we can get a sense of where are we, what's been covered off. And all I'd say to you is maybe it's time to start to think about, as we work together, a more consistent process that delivers some outputs and some outcomes that we can all understand. And then we start to have a common conversation. And if you're talking about having a seamless claim service, it's about understanding what both of you are going to do and which bits of this you might need to cover off. Ultimately, our role is to calculate a reserve and develop a loss model. But we need from you, what is it that's in your mind? What's your experience telling you? What does this incident start to look like? So I'd say to you, it's worth having another revisit of process, talking to your customers and clients about what matters to them, because out of this will come actions and opportunities for making decisions. And sort of just to conclude, and this is one of my, I take photographs as I wander around different sites, and I've always loved this one. It was just, obviously you can work out it's just below the emergency button. We use it in our place when we're about to appoint an adjuster. We have a button on the desk and it appoints an adjuster straight away. And so really what I just say to you is when we call as your customers, we need your expertise. We want to deliver what we've sold and what we think our customers have bought. And you may, if you're at the Scylla lunch tomorrow, you'll hear a little bit more about that from our Chief Underwriting Officer, because he believes absolutely that that's my job. My job is to look at what's been sold and what's been bought and make sure we deliver to that in a timely and effective fashion. That's what I'm charged with doing. Internally, I'm charged with getting the numbers right and the policies. So there's some thoughts perhaps for you. So what I'd say to you, we want the same expertise and we want to develop that and we want it to stay relevant and we want you to stay in tune with what's happening in business today in a difficult and challenging time for all of our customers. We want the same approach to resolving claims that we believe has sat at the heart of loss adjusting for many years. And I think from time to time we all lose sight of what are we actually there to do? What's our purpose? It's to resolve claims. But what we would like is different reporting and different interaction. And we'd like more interaction. And if we do that, I think we'll have a seamless claims service. So thank you very much.